Hi everyone, welcome to Infidelity Chronicles channel that I'm excited to share a new story with you. My husband was out of town and his son stayed in my bed. I know how that sounds, but before you judge me, ask yourself, what do you do when the man you love stops seeing you and someone else looks at you like you matter again? This isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about what happens when you feel invisible in your own marriage. My name is Lily. I'm 42 and I've never said this out loud before. Not to my therapist, not to my friends, not even to myself in the mirror. But here it is. I feel like I'm disappearing. There was a time, not even that long ago, when I would have told you I was happy, not perfect, not movie, ecstatic, but solid, grounded, married to a man I trusted, a man who made me laugh, even when I didn't want to, a man whose hand on the small of my back used to feel like safety. Arthur and I met when I was 30 and ready to start over. He had a son from a previous marriage, Jesse, who was 9 at the time, and wary of me and the way children are when they've already seen too much. I gave them space, I earned my place, and I fell in love with both of them in a way that felt clean earned. The first few years were full of that intoxicating mix of certainty and lust. We couldn't keep our hands off each other even in the mundane moments. Once we slow danced in the laundry room because our favorite song came on and the clothes were warm. I remember the way his lips brushed my temple, the way he breathed me in like he needed it. But life started layering itself on top of U.S. careers, school schedules, mortgage payments, little irritations that stacked like laundry, never folded somewhere along the way. His touch stopped feeling like an invitation. It became more like an obligation. The last time he kissed me, before he left for his conference in Denver, it was automatic. No pressure in the lips. No pause after like he used to, just a distracted peck on his way out the door while he checked his phone. I stood there in my robe waiting for him to turn around and look at me like he used to. He didn't. That night I curled up on his side of the bed, craving the weight of his arm across me. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and held it there like a barrier, and that's when it hit me. I missed the way he used to make me feel wanted, not just loved wanted. And once you realize that kind of absence, it starts echoing in every room. Arthur is a trauma nurse. Nights, weekends, holidays. It doesn't matter if someone's bleeding out or coding in the ER, he's there. I used to admire that about him, the way he poured himself into people, how his voice dropped when he was explaining something serious. It made me feel safe, protected. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being one of the people he protected. The night before he left, he came home around 10. I was already in bed with a book I hadn't really been reading. My eyes were on the page, but nothing was going on. He stripped off his scrubs in the dark, climbed in beside me, and pressed his body close. His hands found my H*********, then my thigh. He nuzzled my neck like we were picking up in the middle of something, like I wasn't already 6 inches deep in silence. I flinched just slightly, but it was enough. "You okay?" he asked, hand still there. "Yeah, just tired." It was a lie. I wasn't tired. I was starving, but not for us, ********X, not at that moment. I needed something slower, something softer, a conversation. Maybe a question about how I'd been feeling lately, or if I'd noticed how we hadn't really looked at each other in weeks. He pulled away without another word, turned his back and fell asleep. I lay there watching the shape of his shoulder in the dark, wanting to say this isn't what I need. This feels like touching without seeing, but I didn't. Because how do you say that to someone who holds broken people together for a living? Instead, I folded into myself like paper, and the bed stayed cold even with both of us in it. The morning he left for Denver, Arthur surprised me by making breakfast, scrambled eggs, burnt toast, and avocado slices cut with surgeon-level precision. "Look at that," I joked half-heatedly, sipping my coffee. "You still remember how to hold a knife when it's not attached to a human." He chuckled and wrapped his arms around me from behind, kissing the back of my neck. I froze, not visibly, I don't think, but something in me went rigid, like a bridge locking up in a storm. "You okay?" he murmured, still close to my skin. "Yeah, thanks for breakfast," I said, slipping away under the guise of grabbing plates. I wanted to be okay. I wanted to melt into him like I used to. But lately, every time he touched me, it felt like I had to act like the woman I used to be instead of the one I am now. Later, while I loaded his suitcase into the trunk, he gave me that grin. His charm gets me out of trouble, smile and smacked but as I turned away, a playful thing, something he's done for years. But this time it didn't land right. I was tense, not in anger but disappointment. He didn't notice, or if he did, he filed it away under women being mysterious and kissed me goodbye, firm confidence like we were fine, but I didn't feel kissed. I felt bypassed. That evening I scrolled through our old photos, remembering how his hand used to rest on my thigh in every picture. His fingers tucked and possessive, like he couldn't help it now, even when we're shoulder to shoulder. I feel like we're caught apart. I try to remember the last time I felt that spark, that little hitch in my breath when he walked into a room. Now when he touches me, I brace for it instead of reaching back, and then I hate myself for that. Because I do love him and I do want him. But lately, every hug feels like a question. I don't know how to answer. Every kiss feels like an obligation I forgot to study for, and every time he reaches for me with that familiar urgency, all I can think is, why does everything have to turn into S******X? It happened on the second night. Arthur was gone. Jesse was home from college for spring break. He'd grown into a tall, quiet man, polite to a fault, always offering to do the dishes, always calling me Aaron, even though I used to tuck him in at night when his nightmares got too loud. I made dinner because I needed something to do with my hands, roasted chicken, salad, wine. I didn't feel like drinking. We sat at the kitchen island, the same place we'd shared 100 of meals as a family. So Jesse said halfway through his plate, "Dad says you might come with him to the next conference in Chicago." I blinked at what I looked up. He said that. Yeah, he said you two were trying to make more time for each other. I laughed. Not the good kind. Sharp, reflexive. He looked startled, sorry. I muttered. I didn't know we were trying anything. Jesse set down his fork. Did I say something wrong? No. I said too quickly, then slower. No, it's just that's news to me. I guess I try to keep eating, but my throat closed up. I pushed my plate away. My eyes stung and I hated how fast it was happening, how quickly my body betrayed me. I don't know what we're doing anymore. I said not really to him. He touches me like I'm a checkbox, a to-do list. And then I feel guilty for not wanting it and guilty for wanting something else. I can't even name. Jess' face went red. I'd said too much, way too much. I'm sorry, I said, standing up too fast. My chair screeched. I didn't mean God. This is not your problem. He was quiet, kind. But still, do you want me to go? No, just. I need a minute. I escaped to the bathroom and shut the door, pressing my back against it like it could keep everything out. Tears came hot and fast, and with them shame I hadn't just snapped. I'd spilled onto Jesse, of all people, Arthur's son, the one person in this house who still looked at me like I mattered, and all I could think over and over was, what is wrong with me? Arthur got back 3 days after the dinner with Jesse. I met him at the door with a tight smile and a stiff hug that felt more like a greeting card than a welcome. We didn't talk about anything that mattered, not the trip, not dinner, not the strange quiet that had grown between us like a second skin. The mornings became rituals of avoidance, passing coffee, brushing teeth side by side without touching. Once he reached for my hand on the couch during a movie. I let him hold it, but my fingers stayed limp, my eyes fixed on the screen. I felt him notice. I felt his hand let go, and then the silence deepened. He wasn't cruel. He didn't retreat. In anger, he just folded it on himself. He came home later, spent longer in the garage, and when I'd find him sitting in the dark, staring at nothing, he'd say he was fine. I could tell he wasn't. I missed him. God. I missed him, but every time I imagined trying to talk to him, really talk, I heard myself choking on words. I didn't know how to say I need more from you without sounding like I blamed him for something. I couldn't even explain. One night I watched him sleep, his mouth slightly open, hand curled against a C****** T like he was guarding something. He looked tired, older, and it hit me. I wasn't the only one who felt lost. Maybe you didn't know how to reach me either. I lay there wide awake, staring at the ceiling, and I realized I had 3 choices: keep drifting and wait for the whole thing to sink, or try to swim back toward him before it was too late. I just didn't know yet if I had the strength. It was a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after Arthur got back. When I finally spoke, the house was quiet. Jesse already gone back to school. Arthur was sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched, scrolling through something on his phone, but not really looking. I think we lost something, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up slowly, eyes tired, mouth set in a line like he'd known this was coming. I know, he said. That was all. No defense, no deflection, just a quiet acknowledgement. I sat beside him, not touching but close enough to feel the heat of his arm. I tried to want it the way I used to. I admitted the way we used to, but it started to feel like pretending, and the more I pretended, the more I resented you for not noticing. His jaw clenched. He nodded but didn't speak. I know you love me, I said, and I love you too, but I think we don't know how to reach each other anymore. He turned to me, then slowly, and brushed a piece of hair behind my ear. His hand lingered there, warm and gentle. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, he whispered. I just didn't know how to hold on without holding too tight. I leaned into his hand just for a second, then pulled away. That night he slept on the couch without asking, and in the morning we made coffee in silence, still caring, still soft. But something had shifted, not broken exactly, just gone. Sometimes love doesn't end in fire or betrayal. Sometimes it just dissolves quietly, like sugar in warm water. I've told you pieces of this story as if I'm confessing sins I can't quite atone for. But the truth is there are no villains here, not really, just three people who fell in love and then discovered that love isn't always enough to keep three hearts beating as one. What I learned is this desire isn't a switch you flip on and off. It's a conversation. It begins in the silent moments, when someone really sees you, when someone cares enough to ask how your day was, when someone lets your hand stay, and there's long enough for the world to fall away. Without that, even the most perfect kiss can feel empty. I learned that emotional intimacy is its own kind of vulnerability. It's risking being seen at you most confused, you're most unsure, and trusting that whoever's across from you will stay. It's saying I don't know who I am anymore and hoping you'll hold the space for my question. I learned that grief and longing can exist in a marriage just as easily as they do in a breakup. I grieve the woman I used to be, the one who felt safe in his arms without a second thought. I grieve the quiet confidence we once shared, the way our bodies fit together, like promises unspoken. Most importantly, I learned that selfhood can't be sacrificed at the altar of togetherness. I had to find my own voice again, even if it meant speaking up in a room that felt colder. When I did, I had to remind myself that my needs mattered, that feeling seen was not selfish, but essential. In the end, Arthur and I didn't storm out of each other's lives in bittersweet defiance. Nor did we pretend everything was fine and stitch up the cracks with denial. We chose honesty. We chose the courage to face a distance between us we couldn't simply overlook, and in that choice there was both rupture and grace. So here I stand, not entirely healed, but more whole than I was. When I silenced my own heart, I've learned that love can survive. Endings and endings can make space for beginnings, of self-discovery, of understanding, of kinder truths. If there's something I hope you take from this, it's that the most lasting bonds are woven from authenticity, and that sometimes the hardest goodbyes are the ones we say to our own fear of being alone. But in those goodbyes, we learn to greet ourselves anew. Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel by activating the bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. See you tomorrow, my loves.